Welcome. It's noon. I think we'll get started. We have a short hour here to accomplish a lot. So I'm excited to see so many people. When you plan events like this, you never know what's going to happen. I've coordinated the private college job fair for the whole time I've worked at St. Thomas, 25 years. And I used to do these, and I had more panel people than I did students. So I quit doing them for a while. And then I thought, okay, I've been around long enough. It's time to regurgitate old ideas. So I did it again. And because of social media and a variety of other things, it was easy to get the word out. But then I laid in bed this morning worrying that the room wasn't going to be big enough because there's 500 students from St. Thomas about. We're hitting almost that 500 mark. So then I had visions of people standing around the walls and everything else. But it looked like it's just perfect. So we reserved a seat just for you. Welcome. If you don't know who I am, I'm Becky Durham, and I work in the Career Development Center. I have many of my coworkers here that are involved with the work that I do that are scattered around the room. I don't want to take time for introductions because the reason you're here is really to hear from the panel. So, but everyone working in all these stations is here to help you from the Career Development Center, and we're glad that you're here. A couple of logistics things. One is you were hopefully given a note card on your way in, a little index card. One side should be your name. That's the easy part. We're going to use that for door prize drawing. I know you were already swiped in. That was the attendance thing. We're going to use the name for a door prize drawing. Then, not correlated with that whatsoever because we don't want to embarrass you, the other side is a question that you'll have for the panel. So we're going to use them to start with to pull out questions. Your name will go back in the basket for the door prize drawings. Okay, so I want you to think of questions to get the juices flowing. I did have a few on the sheet, but I'm not going to ask these because I want them to come from you. The panel's here to offer tips on what you need to do. How many of you are currently registered for the fair? You've turned in your registration forms. Great. If you haven't, there are a few hands that didn't go up. Registrations are still being accepted till next Wednesday, but you do need to, if you haven't gone to an orientation, attend one of those and get your form in by next Wednesday to meet the deadline date. Let's see, what was the other thing I wanted to make sure I covered? The names, the questions, how many of you have attended the fair in the past? Oh, great, okay. And I know even a couple, they didn't raise their hand, but a couple of our employers have actually been students at the fair, and now they're employers at the fair. So they've done both sides of the event. Well, the purpose of this is for you to hear from employers and a student about their experiences to prepare for the fair, as well as attending the fair and how to make it the most successful event that you can. They're going to give you a lot of tips, and you may feel overwhelmed when you leave. And I get this sometimes when I do the success seminars where they just sort of almost the circuits sort of fry because there's just so much to do. What I want you to do is listen to what they have to say, filter what you think works best for you, how much time you have, what it is that you think you need to focus on for this event, and hopefully just take away one or two tips. They're going to give you a lot more than that. The prep packet, looks like we're out of them over here, how to prepare for the fair. A lot of the tips are in there. Go back, review that. That's helpful for you as well. But I think did you have a question on that? Oh, okay. I prepared a 22-page packet for them on how to get ready for the fair. It's all the answers. It's like Dorothy's ruby slippers. The answers are right there. You just have to use it. And so we're going to start with that. So to get us started, what I'm going to have the panel do is go down the line and introduce themselves and who they are, their job title, where they work, and then experience they have at the fair as the employer, and then a best tip. So we'll start with Ashley, if you wouldn't mind.
Hi, I'm Ashley Senny. I'm the store team leader at the St. Louis Park Target store. So in non-Target terms, I'm the store manager. I've been with Target for about 6 years, and I actually got my position with Target through a career fair. I graduated from the University of Wisconsin in La Crosse. So I have lots of great tips on just how to work a career fair, but do think that that's probably the most value-added event or, I guess, way of getting a job that's out there. So I look forward to answering lots of questions today.
My name is Steve Freschel. I'm the employment manager at Securian Financial Group. We are in downtown St. Paul. Let's see, 27 years ago, I got my first job out of college from this career fair, and I think it was the second year they did this private college career fair. And this is my 26th year as being an employer going to this career fair. So I think I'll probably be the senior member here of the group. I probably should just get this out of the way right away. I'm a Johnny, so be nice, all right? I'm going to give you kind of an off-the-wall best tip, because you're going to hear lots of things today. It has to do with being nervous. You're going to be nervous at this career fair. You're meeting a lot of new people and trying to find a job. And sometimes your body doesn't always react positively when you're nervous. So, no gum chewing, but bring breath mints. I know it seems kind of a funny
We always
tip.
have them at our table too, just in case you forgot.
Bring breath mints. There is nothing more difficult than being a recruiter and trying to speak with someone, and because you're nervous, you get dry mouth and you get really bad breath. It is. I can't concentrate. It's all I can do is to end this conversation as quickly as possible. So there's my hygiene best tip: is no gum chewing, because that's distracting. But bring breath mints.
Words of wisdom.
Yep.
There you go. My name is Paul Steffen, and I know that Aaron and I are feeling better that we ate a mint after lunch here today. So we should be in good shape. I'm the director of college recruiting for United Health Group. I've been at United for 8 years. We've been coming to the job fair for the last 5. And then a tip. I think the biggest tip I could give, and I'm going to try to do this in 15 to 30 seconds, but I could probably spend 15 minutes to an hour and a half telling you how to go about doing this. I think my biggest tip would be to prepare by getting to know yourself. And I know that's weird advice, everybody thinks that they know themselves, but I know a lot of times students will prepare by getting to know the companies that are going to be there and what those companies are all about. But I've been doing campus recruiting since '93, so although I look much older than Steven, I'm actually much younger than him. The biggest thing I've run into over that, I guess it's 20 years now, of experience on campus is students not knowing who they are from the perspective of what they have to offer an employer. Why is that employer going to be interested in connecting with you? They don't know the top 3 things that they have that they feel that employer would be looking for. And so I think doing a little bit of an inventory of your skill set and coming in with a game plan of the companies that you're going to talk to and which one of those skills you're going to share with them to get them interested is probably the number one tip I would give. So weird advice, but take some time to get to know yourself before you go to the career fair and give companies a chance to get to know you.
Thanks, Paul. And then we have Aaron. Aaron is our student representative who attended the fair last year and will provide some tips for you on what it's to be like walking through the aisles.
So hi, I'm Erin Alzahar. I'm a senior this year. I'm a psychology major with minors in Spanish and the Renaissance program. And right now I'm interning for a company called CEB Iconoculture. I'm a client services intern. I attended the fair last year, like Becky said. And my best tip would have to be really, you get out of the fair what you put into it. And so, all the prep work that you do, like that big 20-page packet, like it seems like a lot of work, but it's really worth it in the end. Like not only for the employers that you plan to see there, but also, if a booth catches your eye, be like, oh, that sounds like an interesting company. You have a little bit more background where you can maybe improvise something and, put a different elevator speech together for that, as well as, other job searches you do in the future too. So it really is worth doing the homework.
Thank you. Then I also want to point out that we have 3 other employer representatives that are here. They're sort of sitting in the audience as more spectators. We have Kelly, Kimberly, and Catherine up front here, and they might be anteing in their 2 cents worth as well. They're with Paul from United Health Group. They're here more as an observing, just kind of get a feel for what an event like this is like, but they all have experience at the fair, both as students and employers, so they may ante in as well. What we're going to do now is I'm going to ask the first question, but while I'm doing that, your cards should be ready, and we're going to have people go through the aisles with the baskets, kind of like church where they do a collection, but we're not asking for money. We just want your index cards. So hopefully you have your name on one side and a question on the other. And if you just want to do one or the other, but I won't read whose question it is, so I'm not going to try to shame you and say, so-and-so asked this question. They're irrelevant at this point. So, I think we've sort of addressed this. Well, maybe I'll wait, because it's kind of noisy. We'll just collect the cards and kind of go from there. Did you want to? Okay.
Oh, gosh. So my best tip is one, show up. I think there's a lot to be said about not putting off going to a career fair. I think it's pretty easy to say, oh, I'll go next year, I'll catch the next one. But just go. The more you can go and meet different employers, the better chance of getting a job or an internship you have. And then similar to the advice that we heard earlier, beyond kind of really getting to know yourself, do your research on the different employers that are there, so that you don't just walk up to a table and say, oh, what do you guys do? Like, it's really important, at least for me as someone who's recruiting, I want to hire somebody who's passionate about wanting to work for me. So do your research and know the company.
All right, we'll start with an easy one here, because I think it's helpful for everyone to know. You're all students, and I'm looking out there. You're dressed very student-like. Well, guess what? It's time to go to the next level and have that professional look. So I want to hear from the panel what their expectations are as far as appropriate dress attire and kind of what they look for somebody coming to the fair. And Erin, what you thought about when you were dressing to go to the fair. So tips and things that you might look for.
I would say don't overdo it, but definitely dress for success. So dress for the position that you're hoping to get.
Yeah, I would say professional dress. I go to a lot of career fairs, and this one stands out that the students show up very professional. If you have a suit and tie, I would wear a suit and tie or a sport coat and tie. Maybe you can talk about female dress, because I don't know much about that. Make sure that you've done your hair appropriately and all those kind of things. So presume that the companies there are the most conservative, and then you can kind of back off from there.
I would just also tack on, so when we talk about women's dress, a lot of times we think heels, but wear something that's comfortable. If you're really uncomfortable and you're not feeling like you can walk steadily, that may throw your game off. So dress professionally, but also be comfortable.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything earth-shaking to add to that advice. The only thing I would tell you is, do your best. Not everybody can afford a suit, and a lot of times employers are going to be understanding of that. But your appearance should look like you made an effort. I've seen a lot of college students over the years, and sometimes as a college student, you don't always have cash to go out and drop $600 on a suit and a shirt and ties and all that kind of stuff. And those things can be easily corrected if someone has the right attitude. So, I would say do your best and make sure what you wear, you feel comfortable. Not only, that you're actually physically comfortable, like these shoes don't hurt my feet, but you feel confident in what you're wearing and you feel like you look good. If you look in the mirror and you don't like the outfit, I'd switch it up, because that confidence or lack thereof, can change the result, your demeanor and how you're going to interact with folks.
Yeah, my advice kind of piggybacks off the rest of it is, be comfortable. There are some companies where they have lines for miles to talk to somebody. So if you wear shoes that really hurt, it's not going to be a fun wait in those lines. And kind of, just be comfortable. I mean, I went out and bought a new suit for it, I think. But I also, I wore it around the house a little bit. I know it sounds a little bit silly, but just to get comfortable in it and to, feel confident in it as well. So, I mean, if you go out and buy something new, at least try it on before you go, I would say, and, make sure everything goes well and kind of fits together too. That's what helped me.
I'm just going to add in there, if you go out and buy something, you guys, buy something that you can wear multiple times. Don't just get something that's just for this event. So if if you don't own a suit, get something that's either black or navy. Then you can wear it for your interview, and then you can just switch it up with either a different shirt or a tie or something.
Yeah, and one other comment on that, you want to feel comfortable in it, and guys, I guess I would say this, if you wear a suit and wear a tie, wear it the appropriate way. You'd be amazed how many guys walk up and they've got a tie on, but they haven't buttoned their top button, and the tie's hanging down here. It's not tight up. So it just, again, it all goes to put it together so that you look like you meant to and you didn't just crawl out of bed and ran to the career fair.
If you want ideas and visuals, if you're more of a visual person, one of our staff members, Patricia, created a Pinterest board for the Career Development Center. And we have a Pinterest site. There's a link to it on our webpage, and we have a board for what to wear as a man and what to wear as a woman. So if this is a whole new field for you and you're not sure, but I'd go back to saying, if you can't afford it, doesn't mean, that you have to go out and buy something new, borrow from someone, go to a consignment shop, do whatever you need to. And then as far as women with the shoes, you could wear, Plan B would be wear very comfortable shoes, bring them down in a backpack, and wear your comfortable shoes down, bring your high heels in the bag if that's what you're plan to wear at the fair. We do have a free coat check, and that is in your information that you received, but it's in the student lounge, and so you can check your coat, your shoes, backpacks, bags, whatever it is in there. So that kind of goes along with the dresses. Don't carry around big bags, purses, and backpacks in with you. You really need to be focusing on what you need to do there. So, okay. So, questions. My group over here is reading some. You got any good ones for me?
Great one.
Good.
Wonderful question.
Good. See, better than I probably came up with. Good. All right, here is a question. Now, if we feel like we need to have every panel member answer, fine, but if you're going to say the same thing, you can just sort of say ditto, and we'll go to some other questions here. So, should we go if we're not sure what we want to do yet? So in other words, they don't really have a career direction. Is it worth going to the career job fair?
I would say yes. I had no idea when I was a junior what I wanted to do, and just happened to find Target. I knew a lot about Target. I had worked retail all throughout high school and into college. So beyond me just introducing myself, I just asked a lot of questions, and they sounded like an employer that I'd love working for. And here I am 6 years later. So yes, absolutely go. You can find out a ton of information and do a lot of networking.
The only thing I would add to that is absolutely go, but don't try and fake your way through it. Be upfront with a company and say, you know what, I'm very much in the exploring stages and I'm trying to learn about some different things versus trying to act like you know what you want and then you're asking the wrong types of questions. But that's what we're there for, is to help you out. There's a whole level of career counseling that goes on there too.
I agree. I think companies are there to make hires, but also to build their employer brand. And part of that would be to let you know of the opportunities that someone with your background could be a part of. So going up to a recruiter or somebody that's at the fair, you're probably going to get more than likely an expert opinion if you start talking through your background and saying, what kind of possibilities could I be looking at with this background, or whether it's educationally or these are my interests, what do you have at your company? I think that's a completely legitimate way to utilize the resources at the fair.
I would say yes as well, because just from my experience, when I went last year, I didn't know exactly what I was looking for. I had a few companies in mind, but now, if I'm going back this year, when I go back, just having that experience of being there and in that big open convention area with all of the other people milling around, it's a little bit disconcerting at first, but now that I have that experience and I kind of know the drill a little bit, I'm going to feel a little bit better about approaching people and kind of knowing what I want to do and things like that.
Thanks. The question about a resume. Should they have a customized resume, probably maybe for each company at the fair? Do you look for that?
I can start with that one. I would say no. I never encourage students to, especially if you're going to have a broad search, to have customized resumes. In 20 years, I've never seen someone get a job because of their resume, but I have seen people lose opportunities to talk to folks. When you hand out a custom resume and you give somebody the wrong one, I personally think it's a forgivable mistake, but a lot of hiring managers won't. They'll think it shows lack of attention to detail, or if it says, you're looking for a financial analyst job at Target, right? They'll be like, well, I actually have an accounting position and we're not Target, so this person, isn't going to be interested in my opportunity. So I think customization introduces the opportunity for a lot of mistakes which have downside, but doesn't have a tremendous amount of upside. Because if you're the person hiring that financial analyst at Target, maybe, you're probably not going to be, wow, look at that objective is exactly what we're hiring for. This person could be an amazing fit, so you don't get that kind of reaction. So for me, there's potential downside with not a lot of upside, but others will have different opinions.
See a lot of head shaking. So go ahead, Auntie Ann.
I agree, especially at this career fair. It's so busy, and I'll put another little plug in. It's a perfect point is you don't want to be fumbling through all your stuff when you're trying to talk to get a resume out. So the other part with that is make sure that those resumes that you've got that are easily accessible, or get it ready before you step up so that you can just hand it to them versus opening up your portfolio and pulling it out and then all these business cards fall out and it's like, oh, really? So yeah, just make it easy, especially at this career fair because it's a busy one.
Any other?
Yeah, and I would just tack on that, I guess when I recruit, yes, I take your information and I remember you, I guess, through the resume because I have your name and all your information. But I would say focus more on how you're going to just let your personality shine because at the end of the day, I am going to hire you. I don't care as much about your resume. So.
I have one other comment. I'm kind of curious what these guys think. I know a lot of business schools and business programs also want you to create a business card. My opinion is I don't need your business card and your resume. That's it's just another something I got to hold on to. And so if all your information's on your resume, I got it. So
I would agree with that. We don't need two. Business cards are nice though for events. And so, you might be getting advice from career services or a professor or somebody to say to have business cards. You just don't need to double barrel it and hit us with both at a career fair. But having business cards for when you're at, the econ club, had a speaker come in, you're probably not going to roll in with a resume and stick that in somebody's face. But it might be nice if you're just chatting afterwards and say, hey, I'd like to keep in contact. Can we exchange cards? I think that makes more sense. So I think there's value to having them, just, know when to use them. And I would agree with Stephen that probably not a need to double up.
And one more note on the resumes too. I did customize mine because I had a psychology more oriented one and also like a business one. So for that it was worth to customize it because, I was a little bit more concerned that if I had given like a marketing somebody psychology one, they'd be like, well, what am I going to do with this? Whereas if I had tailored it a little bit more towards the business side, like it would be worth maybe a little bit more of a second look as well. So kind of like levels of customization, I think, is something to think about too.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I've run into people to students who are pre-med, and they've created a CV, I think is what they have to do for med school. So, curriculum vitae or whatever that is. And have tried to use that as a resume, and that doesn't work. That's not a one-size-fits-all thing. So you may have for different opportunities, if you're looking for something in your field of psychology as opposed to leveraging your general business degree, that would make perfect sense. Same thing as if you were putting together something to apply to a medical school from a pre-med perspective. That's going to look different than something that you're going to try to use to get a summer internship. That's a great point.
Related to printed materials, and it's sort of one of the questions, but I've had a few in success seminars this week. Do you look for cover letters, references, portfolios? I think I know the answer to this, especially after the business card thing. Would anyone want anything other than a resume? All right, that's the answer to your question. So some of you have asked that during seminars. So that's the answer I give. I was just hoping I was answering the correct way. There's too many students, too many pieces of paper flying. So one resume, that's all you need at the fair. Okay, we have a lot of questions in regards to the elevator speech and introducing yourself. So talk a little bit about the elevator speech, and then after introducing yourself, what's a good way to kind of initiate the conversation? What do you look for in an elevator speech? Anything about that introduction time?
I think your elevator speech needs to be, 30 seconds at the most. It'd be, and practice it. Practice it with your friends. This is, my name is Steve Freschel. I'm a student from St. Thomas. This is my major. I'm graduating this May, and I'm looking for a full-time position. And if you've done your research, you already know what types of positions that company's looking for. I'm interested in, your programmer analyst position, and here's a couple things I know, but I have some additional questions. And then that then turns the tide over to the recruiter, and the recruiter is going to probably either ask you for your resume if you haven't already given it to them. And usually we're going to start looking at your resume as you're talking, because I know what I'm looking for, and I can do it in about 30 seconds, and I've already got a couple questions, and that will get the ball rolling. So.
Yeah, that was sort of a lead into the next question. How does the conversation ensue? So, yeah, it's typically a question and answer then after the elevator speech. So, okay. What else do you look for? Others?
I think you said it very well. I think if you can throw in a little something that's memorable about yourself, that's also helpful. But yeah, I wouldn't do much more. Just short and sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it goes back to my comment earlier about knowing yourself. For me, if I'm talking to somebody, I would want their elevator speech to encompass some of the things that they think are going to help make them successful at my company. And all of our companies are going to be pretty similar. Everybody, from the standpoint of, we'll probably all use behavioral interviewing. It's pretty standard stuff. A lot of the success factors that recruiters or hiring managers interview for and look at are fairly standard from company to company. There's going to be some amount of customization, but I think in an elevator speech it should have a little bit about who you are professionally, so your degree, your year in school, and some of that, just something about you personally, so some biographical information. But then beyond that, to generate the next level of that conversation, it's going to be, tell me a little bit about those things that you think are going to make you successful. If you think you're a hard charger, if you think you're detail-oriented, and be ready to share examples and let the person know, I'm interested in an opportunity at your company because I've got these characteristics that I think will help me succeed here, and I can give you examples of how I've applied all of those. To me, that's a great conversation starter that gets the person interested in saying, okay, well, tell me about some of those things and why you think you're a good fit, and keeps the conversation going. So it all goes back to knowing yourself and having something of substance to share, during that elevator speech.
Erin, you want to talk about writing and giving an elevator speech?
Sure.
Or how did you approach the employers? I mean, that's one of the questions that's related to that as well, so.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure I used one of the pages that's in that pamphlet there. I think we have a page about elevator speeches or something like that. So I definitely did use that as a template. And then I also tried to, on each company that I was looking at, or if they had a certain position I was interested in, I also tried to go on and find one or two things I read about this on your site that I'm kind of interested about. And then I use that kind of to segue into, could you tell me a little bit more about maybe the position, but also these certain aspects of it as well, to show that you tell a little bit about yourself, and also that you show you did research about their company too, and that you want to learn more about it. And it is a little bit disconcerting, if they take your resume and then start reading it, but you just have to keep plowing through, even if you do find it awkward, because it is a little bit at first, but you just gotta keep going and it'll be fine.
They are listening.
Yeah.
They can multitask.
One other comment with this, and it might not, you could use this as part of your elevator speech, but that Tommy, all the private schools, but Tommy's, you have a great alumni network, and all of our companies have tons of Tommies that work for us in the exact same positions that we're recruiting at the career fair for. Start doing research, find out who the more recent Tommy grads are, contact them, find out more about their positions, and sometimes that, to me, in the opening of in your elevator speech, if someone comes and says, hey, my friend Joe graduated last year, and I know he's working for you, and I talked to him. It shows me that, okay, you've done a little bit extra research, and you can get that in your first 30 or 45 seconds in your elevator speech.
I know she talked about handing a resume. I personally cannot really multitask
Okay.
that great.
Making broad assumptions here.
Yeah. If my head's down and I'm reading something, and these ladies all work with me, they know, and I'm probably a typical guy in that regard, I can only focus on one thing at a time. So I would say get your elevator speech out there, and have a conversation, and let the recruiter or the manager or whatever then ask for your resume, if you come up and stick this in my face and I start looking at it and you're talking, I'm not gonna get it. I won't be able to read that and listen to you at the same time. So I would say, don't ask, and maybe I have problems, but don't, because Steven's probably over there, I can do it. But
I agree with you. I would prefer not to, so I think that's very good
I usually
advice.
just take it, I'll listen to you, and then I'll take a peek at it.
Kind of goes back to what Ashley was saying earlier. A lot of you as students think the resume is it, and you've got this piece of paper flailing around. And Ashley mentioned making that personal connection, and we talk about that in our success seminars. It's the eye contact, the smile, and the handshake, and your brief introduction first before you start handing the resume over. So make that, even though it doesn't take really long, make that personal connection.
In fact, I would spend more time practicing how you are going to introduce yourself than worrying about your resume.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like, even if you don't show up with a resume and I think that you are great right off the bat, I personally, as the recruiter, will make a note to, put your name down and your information, so.
for a job fair, I think that's outstanding advice. But take time on your resume for when you're not at a job fair, because your resume interviews for you when you're not there, right? So, but at a job fair, it doesn't really matter, because your personality and everything else shines through. I think that's great advice. But when you're just going to hand it in through a posting or something like that, make sure your resume is tight.
I had a few of the prep packets up here, like they're purple covered. I'm going to the fair, now what do I do kind of thing. They're all gone, so I'm assuming you grabbed them. The very last page of that handout is the worksheet on the elevator speech. So that's what you should pay attention to that Erin is referring to. It walks you through the process. We offer pop-ins to do resume critiques. We're also willing to do your little practice elevator speeches. You get with pop-in time, 10 or 15 minutes to practice whatever you want, have us critique a resume, or we'd be willing to kind of have you practice your elevator speech and give you some feedback on it, at least for a couple of minutes. So that's one way to use that. The other thing Steve mentioned is to try to find alumni that are out there in all of these organizations or whoever it is that you're connecting with. If you're not, you should be on LinkedIn, and we have, what's our latest number, Patricia? 1,700 people in our LinkedIn group called Ask, Alumni Sharing Knowledge. You should make sure you join that group, because that's how you will find your connections to alumni that are out there, and you can sort by company name, by career field, a variety of things. So make sure you use that resource as a tool to help you do the things that they're talking about up here to make you successful. Yes?
But there's 29,000 comments on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Patricia. Can you tell she's our social media guru? Her and Laura together put those pieces together. So you're tweeting right now. All right. They're live tweeting. Okay, thanks. Well, all right, then we have a couple of questions about timing. How long do you typically spend talking with a student that approaches your table? How much time can they expect at the booth?
I think first it depends on how big the career fair is. So this one's pretty big, so we may not be able to spend a ton of time with you, but it also depends just on how engaging you are. So think about that.
Yeah, and it's a really tough balance for recruiters. If I've got 10 people deep, I don't want each of those people to have to wait a half an hour to talk to me, but yet I want to give you who's in front of me a good amount of time. So to be honest with you, I'm kind of constantly monitoring how long the line is, and I might even ask, how long did you wait in line? And it's just a tough balance. So I would say on average, we probably spend less than 5 minutes for sure with each student. Maybe in the 2 to 3 range. So in general.
You need a sign like they have at Disney line. You're late, wait in line will be approximately.
Yeah, each one's a custom job, depending on what people want to talk about, and, I don't have a timer on my phone that's going to go off, but I think what they said was right. Probably expect 5 minutes is probably reasonable, but it'll depend on how much you have to talk about and, where the conversation goes.
How did that feel for you as a student, Erin? Did you ever feel like you were getting pushed aside? Or what was the timing for you when you approached the employers?
I don't really remember having any issues regarding timing or feeling that I didn't get enough. I always, felt that I had enough to get in there, say what I wanted to say, and then, a couple of them that I talked to weren't looking for interviews that day, so I just wanted to, get them my resume or something like that. So I think it depends on also what the company is looking for, if they're looking to set up interviews or if they're just collecting resumes for now. So I think that's something to keep in mind too.
Anything to add, Ashley, or should I move on? Same thing? Okay. Related to that is a timing thing. Is there a best time to attend the fair? Our students, the fair is open, the general session from 9 to 3 o'clock. Just a reminder, there is a free shuttle bus that goes all day long. I'll be sending you an email with the schedule, but basically from 8 to 5, 3 shuttles every hour at Flynn is the pickup. So you don't have to drive down and park. You can come and go as much as you want. So the job fair this year is on a Wednesday, which throws a little glitch in it for our students. In the past, we've always had it on a Tuesday. You've had that open time to be able to come down during this convo hour. This year, it's on a Wednesday. You have to make some choices about when you're going to attend. And then also missing classes. Just a heads up, I do send an email to the academic dean. It is considered an excused absence, but just don't not show up for class. Try to make up. Talk to your faculty person ahead of time. Say, hey, this is going on. What am I going to miss? How can I make it up? Can I go to another class? Who do I need to talk to? Okay, so little heads up on that. Now, having said that, is there a best time to go to the fair? Morning, lunch, afternoon, or doesn't it matter? And how much time?
Yeah, the only thing I can say, I don't know whether it matters a whole lot. I guess I would avoid the last hour. I mean, we are humans, and this is a really busy fair, and we're tired. I mean, the last hour is rough. Now, having said that, usually the lines have calmed down, so you might get a little bit more time with a particular recruiter, but just realize that we've been talking for 5 hours straight, and we're humans.
And potentially, if the employer is doing interviews the following day, their interview day may have already been filled up. So it just depends, maybe you're a sophomore and you're just going to get more information and you don't need an interview. So then that might be okay. But I think the earlier you can get there, the better if you're really wanting an interview that next day.
Yeah, I think earlier is better. And I think lunch can be tough too. Because we'll have so many people there, but they'll rotate in and out over lunch, and so you probably have lunch is a time when you have the least amount of people probably at every booth to select from, because you're going to have somebody that's going to be rotated out eating. So but I would definitely agree. I think earlier is better.
Do you remember, Erin, when you went or what it felt like at the time?
I feel like I went in the morning, probably late morning, and it was pretty full at that time, but I think I kind of expected that. So I think, just kind of expecting there to be a lot of people regardless of when you go, and kind of preparing for that and planning that out. And maybe, if you have 1 or 2 companies that you really want to hit, go to them first. Although, wait, I take that back. If there's one company that you really, really want to talk to somebody there, maybe go to a couple before that you're not quite as interested in, so you kind of get warmed up a little bit and you kind of practice your elevator speech. That way by the time you hit that company you're really interested in, then you're like, okay, I can do this, I got this, I've done this before. So that's probably my most important timing tip.
Any other advice on timing, when to show up, how much time? Do you remember how much time you spent there, Erin?
Not a whole lot. There weren't a whole lot of companies there that was kind of doing something that I was looking for. I know there were people who are like, I'm going to talk to 17 companies, I'm going to be here all day. I'm like, okay, good for you. And then I know somebody who was there, I'm going to talk to one company, and then they were in and out as soon as they were done. So really it does depend on kind of what you're looking for and what you're hoping to get out of it too.
Okay, I have to tell a very quick, funny story.
Oh, please, yes.
I just interviewed an experienced guy. He's been out in the workforce for a while, and he got his first job at the private college job fair. And he tried to tell me that he had 22 interviews at the private college job fair. And I said, that's not possible. It's just not, you can't possibly talk to that many companies and get an interview with all of them. And he swore up and down that he had 22 interviews at this private college job fair. I'm like, no.
I hope you hired him. It sounded like he was really good.
No,
It sounded like he was lying.
Yeah.
I would
I'm
say
like, I don't believe anything you're telling me from this point on. So.
That's when you audit the resume hard.
I like, no.
Call the references.
Yeah.
For the students that are in the audience, any feedback about how much time you spent down there, what a realistic number is? There's 6 hours available. How many of you would say that those of you that have spent between 1 and 3 hours down there? Okay, anyone 4 to 6? Majority of the day? No. So that 1 to 3 hours tends to be, a good ballpark to plan on that. Now, if you get offers for an interview, that's going to change your day, which leads to the next question. How do I get an interview on the spot? Or even an interview? Are you scheduling interviews? Anything about interviews?
Sure. Go back to that last one. I mean, the other thing too, how long do you stay there? That's another custom job. I mean, how long can you stay fresh and stay focused? Seeing 17 companies, the last 9 of which you were flat for, is a real waste of time. So pick the ones you want to and pick a number. If you can stay fresh doing something like that, walking around, and you got to do the whole thing standing up, and it does make you tired. If you only have 2 hours, then think, if I got a half an hour in line and talking to companies, then you get 4 companies. So it's going to be a custom job, I think, depending on everybody's individual interests and energy. How to get a job on the spot? I mean, it goes back to a lot of the stuff we were already talking about, and I think that Ashley was talking about it with the, it's going to be your personality. It's going to be that elevator speech. It's going to be a combination of, do you know something about the company? And perhaps your resume. Is your resume polished and tight, and is it easy to see how this individual is going to fit in, right? And so it's going to be a combination of factors, not the least of which is going to be that elevator speech and your personality coming through, and your enthusiasm, I would say.
Yeah, the other part I would say on that is every company is going to handle that differently. Some companies are not going to be doing any interviewing. Some are going to be doing limited interviewing. It all kind of depends on their resources. Don't let that put you off one way or the other. The person in front of you, you might see get scheduled for an interview, and you might not. That does not mean a thing. It is, the logistics of all that is really tough for the recruiters. So one other thing I would say on getting an interview, this career fair is one of the best ones out there because it's a 2-day career fair. You've got lots of options. If you don't have your resume in the resume database, shame on you. Get it out there. A lot of companies, that's what I'm going to spend my weekend. I'm going to go through a stack of resumes this high of everyone that's going to a job fair, and we pick people we want to interview. I try to ahead of time. So we do interviews the first day. A lot of companies will also accept you can email them your resume with a cover letter and ask for a pre-select interview. I'm shocked at how few of those I get compared to how many students go to this career fair. So that's another way of getting an interview. You don't have to just get your interview at this career fair with this 30-second interaction with a recruiter. There's other options.
I would say ditto. I don't have a ton to add. I know Target's doing interviews the next day. My team is handling store side interviews, so I look at a variety of things. So take a peek at your resume. I look at your elevator speech, how engaging you are, and then truly if you care about wanting to work for Target. So I think the most frustrating thing is when a student or a candidate comes up to the table and they just want a job and they flat out say that. Well, I mean, a lot of people want a job. So I think you're going to be the best candidate if you have done your research, you're really truly passionate about the companies that you're seeking out and wanting an interview for. Like, you really have to want the interview to want to work at that company. So
I think Stephen had a great point. I mean, so does Target. You have your jobs posted already, and people can ask to be pre-selected. Yeah. We have ours. Do you guys have jobs posted? Yeah, and so I mean, you can, we reserve. I think we only 25% we do for pre-selects. So if you drop, and I'm assuming other companies do that as well. It's a percentage of it. So if you drop for pre-select and you don't get it, I certainly wouldn't assume that means don't stop by the booth. I would still stop by the booth because we only take so many resumes for those pre-selects. I would say go for it if you're really interested in the company. Don't get demoralized and show up to the booth. We just leave it open so that we, leave it open to the possibilities of folks who didn't have a chance to drop beforehand. So there's lots of opportunities, and they're already out there. You can already be dropping. So.
Steve made a point that he's got his pile ready to go, and so hint, hint, sooner rather than later. I sometimes see students come into my office the day before the job fair saying, I'm writing my cover letter to send out. No. If you don't have it done by last weekend, no. You're still looking at them? Okay.
I will tell you, it's the ones we get literally, they email us the night before the career fair and I'm like, really? But I would say get it out there at least
Good
a
week before.
week
Okay,
before.
so you got a little time. Now you know what you're doing this weekend. It's called, and it's in your packet. I don't know the page number. If anyone has their packet in front of them, there is a page number where it talks about what should you include in the cover letter. Look for maybe page 14, 15, somewhere around in there. It's under, the top part of the page is resume, bottom part of the page is cover letter. So that's the thing they're talking about here, prearranged interviews, writing to them ahead of time. That's one. The second one that Steve mentioned is posting it on the website, mnpcfair.org. Go to the student section and you basically download your resume, you dump it into the pool of candidates. My other student that was going to be here today that ended up not being able to come, that's how he got his internship. He went to the fair, had a few interviews, but nothing came of it. And then months later, after the fair, he got a phone call from somebody and said, we didn't have anything the day of the fair. We're going through the resumes in the database now, and you look like you fit. Are you interested? And so he did. So that database is available to all of these employers until next June, and they use it. So get it in there. I'm just shocked how many students don't put it in there. Okay? All right, related to making, we have two ends of the extreme here. I'm going to start with the positive. What makes a candidate stand out? What's the best question that you've had? What most impresses you about a student? So anything about the positiveness of what they can do when they walk up, and I think we've addressed this, but if there's anything else you have to add.
To me, I don't know, there's no best question I ever had. The best question is one that you're really interested in hearing the answer to. I think a lot of times people are just trying to dazzle you with an amazing question that they don't really even care about the answer to. So, I would say only ask questions that you're sincerely interested in, and that's all we're there to do, is to provide information. So you don't need to amaze us with some 3-part question, that shows an in-depth research of the company or anything like that. Ask the questions that you're really interested in hearing about. And then the other stuff, how does people stand out? It's all the stuff we've already talked about. A lot of it, it's going to be that, give them a good handshake, look them in the eye, demonstrate some personality and interpersonal skills, and have an awareness of who you are and what you bring to the table for an employer, and be ready to talk about that, in a detailed, structured fashion. I think that's, and again, like I said, I have more than one answer, but it goes back to know yourself and be ready to talk about that.
Ditto.
Ditto. God, he's good.
Just have that one thing.
I could have just had one panelist,
Know
but we
yourself.
let the others attend just in case.
So,
All right, Erin, anything to add there about what you think worked well for you?
Something I think that worked well for me is kind of emphasizing how I was a little bit different. I was a psych major going to a lot of business positions and things like that. So kind of emphasizing, I'm not exactly what you might be looking for, a typical business major, but, I can bring these other things to the table. So if you kind of know, like Paul said, know yourself. That's a big one. But if you know yourself and kind of what you can bring to the table versus what they're looking for necessarily, I think that helps you stand out.
I love that advice, the differentiator piece of that. That's great advice she's giving you there. I get into interviews all the time where you talk to people and they start to tell you things that don't differentiate them from anybody else. I've got a great GPA, or they want to talk about their decision to why they went to St. Thomas, things that every Tommy student is going to have the ability to talk about, and all those stories are going to feel or hear or sound the same. So her advice about thinking about what makes you unique and being able to deliver that, I think, is outstanding, especially at an event like this where we're going to see lots and lots of students. So, your GPA, we're going to see a lot of students with good GPAs, and you guys usually get them the same way, right? You're smart, you study, you work hard, and that's, so everybody is going to have that story to share. Think about the things that are unique to you and be ready to roll that out. That's tremendous advice.
All right, the other end of the continuum, what's the oops that they should avoid, the mistakes, the no-nos, or the try to avoid? Once again, it might come through a funny story, but Please share.
It's, I just have to say, it's two things that we've talked about. The two worst comments you can say is, oh, I don't know anything about your company. Can you tell me something? No, go away, is what I want to say.
In
But
fact,
I'm being
I think
facetious.
if you really do say that at this career, some employers may say, actually, no, I don't have time. I mean,
Yeah,
so-
and you'd be amazed at how many, you say, really? Would someone say it? Yeah, gosh, I don't know anything about you. Yeah, okay. And then on the flip side, when we ask you a question about yourself or, what type of position you're looking for, I don't know, gosh, anything. I got nowhere to go with that. Those are the two, I think, worst possible comments at a career fair.
Thank you.
And to me, I don't think they're deal killers. It's just, how do you start with your foot in a bucket?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is what it is. You can recover from it, but you better be damn good and have a lot to offer. When you start with, oh, wow, yeah, United Health Group, so what do you guys do?
What hospital are you?
Yeah, exactly. So you can recover from it, but you gotta be real good and run hard. You're just starting with a deficit with either one of those, or I really don't know what I want to do. There's just a way to phrase that and to say, there's a way to phrase it because we talked about that earlier, right? If you don't know what you want to do, should even show up. We all said yes, but then we don't say, I don't really know what I want to do, right? So now you're like, this is the part where the panel has really got me confused, There's just a way to phrase that and to say, there's a way to say, I'm exploring right now and I'd really like your advice. So engage somebody in that helping you, and the way you engage them is going to be important rather than just expressing like, I really haven't had time to think about it. Because people want to help you, but not if you present it as, I just don't know, or does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to say is, I'm at this point, I'm, in such and such a year, I'm really not sure what I want to do. There's a lot out there, but here's what I really enjoy doing. Here's what I'm really passionate about. Here's what I'm good at. And that can be just a really good segue.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. You don't have to lie if you don't know what you want to do. But, engage somebody in a conversation rather than, because that's kind of an ender when you're like, I have no idea.
Sort of a related question with the last couple of minutes here, and some of the panel and I were having a conversation about this earlier. This fair encompasses internships, full-time positions. We open up enrollment to sophomores, juniors, and seniors. However, the sophomores tend to have mixed reactions. Sometimes they come back and say, wow, that was great, I got something. And sometimes they come back and say, that was a waste of my time. So should sophomores attend?
I would say yes. So I have a phenomenal story. I was at River Falls 2 years ago, and a sophomore approached our booth, and she had a connection with a store team leader in a different district. I happen to know this person, so we just got to talking, and she told me everything she had been doing. She'd been planning to study abroad, just an extremely engaging student, and she was extremely passionate about Target, and that's really what she wanted to do for her career. Target typically does not hire interns at the sophomore level, but this student was amazing. So there are exceptions that can be made, and this sounds a little slightly crazy, but I still think about this person that I would want her on my team in a heartbeat. So just think of it that way, that you just never know what doors might open.
Yeah, a couple comments, and you just triggered one I'll get to in a second. Definitely as a sophomore, go. A lot of companies are looking for juniors and seniors, but this is good practice. It's good experience. It gets your confidence up. You know how to approach booths later for the following year. If you happen to be a sophomore and you are going to be overseas the fall of your junior year, tell the employer that, because many of us do a big chunk of recruiting in the fall for the following summer's internships. And if you're not going to be on campus and not even be able to engage in that, and you're somebody, I think, gosh, you're a sophomore, and even though I can't consider you for this summer, I want to consider for next summer, but I can't interview in January. I'm going to figure out how to do that maybe during the summer. So if you happen to be one of those sophomores, or you got friends that are sophomores that are going to be studying abroad in the fall, make sure that they point that out. That's a whole different, in my opinion, a whole different story.
I think it's undoubtedly yes. for a sophomore to show up. Lots of companies will have sophomore programs. We have programs that are, targeted at underclassmen. Talent summit and things that you can get involved in that end up as feeders for internships. And, to me, it's a simple question, what good could come, what bad could come? I can't think of one bad thing that could happen to you as a sophomore in attending, but there's 100 good things that could happen. So, there's no way it would be a waste of your time. I can't think of a single reason why a sophomore wouldn't attend.
And it sort of leads in, I maybe lied a little bit, I said that was going to be the last question, and I have one more that leads into what you were just talking about, and for the panel members. This is a networking event, so follow-up after the fair. Talk about that from both a student perspective and employer perspective. What does that, we always say follow-up after the fair. Can we talk about what that looks like, what that would mean?
I think it's good to follow up,
Email, phone call, how do you want it?
I think email's probably the best. For me, that's going to be personal preference. The thing to keep in mind is, employers probably aren't looking for a new best friend, so like too much follow-up can be unattractive. But I think follow-up is definitely important, especially if you're interested. And I get a lot of emails. I try to respond to all the ones I get from students. I enjoy hearing back from people. And I think, the follow-up can start a relevant dialogue. Just beware of some people are very persistent, and that can be off-putting at times. So I would say curb your enthusiasm to...
With moderation.
Yep, to a reasonable level.
Ditto, and the only thing I would say is, again, every company is going to kind of handle this whole follow-up a little bit differently. You might get some companies that are going to just tell you, you don't need to do that. If we're interested, we'll call you. Some companies like a lot of follow-up, want some follow-up to a certain degree. It's just best to ask, what's the best way to follow up?
Yeah, I think that was a good tip to say.
Aaron, from a student perspective, did you, and how so, and how did it work?
Well, I didn't actually follow up, but I wish I did.
If you could have, would have, should have, what would you?
Still learning. I think that follow-up is important, just if they have like a couple people that they're looking at, maybe that extra step of follow-up, if that's something that they do, will kind of put you over the edge. Maybe we want to interview this person since they seem to care a little bit more. And just any kind of connections that you can keep open to possible employers or somebody who can, refer you to somebody else are always things to keep in kind of the front of your mind. Like, you never want to burn any bridges by like not returning an email or not calling somebody, basically.